Random observations. I think this is fun because we both had some random observations today. And when you brought up your first random observation as they were warming up, I was like, you know what? Let's just talk about it because these are things that should be brought up on the show. These are little things that we are seeing that may not ever be thought about, but as fans, we notice, and I think other fans are probably catching this as well. And if you were there, it would be something that you would want pointed out to you. So I'll let you go first because I thought you had a really, really good observation on this particular individual. Why don't you go ahead and lay this one out for me?
Yeah, so I kind of take a different approach in warm-ups and things like that. My mind wanders a lot. I'm trying to see different things and
Mhm.
piece things together from different days. And one thing that I've noticed, something that's really stood out, is defensive coordinator Steve Wilkes and his coaching approach versus Kyle Shanahan. On Steve Wilkes, he is extremely hands-on. He's at the forefront of defensive drills. He is coaching players, taking them to the side, coaching them up. And something that I've seen now that I've recorded 2 days in a row, he took both of the top cornerbacks, Charvarius Ward and Deommodore Lenoir, aside, and he's working on drills. He's working on hand techniques. He's working on footwork. He's working on a lot of different things and coaching them up personally. That got me thinking. Steve Wilkes has already said he plans to coach from the booth this year because he can see things better from up top rather than on the sidelines. But he is such an integral piece, working hands on and being upfront with the defensive players. I wonder, is there any wandering in Steve Wilkes' mind to change his mind to kind of play it by ear or end up coaching on the sidelines, given how much he helps defensive players during practice and being as hands-on as he is, or does he still stay reserved up in the box? And if so, how does that change the dynamic of the players? A big question there. What are your thoughts kind of on that topic?
No, I do think that it is very, very interesting because he is so hands on. And this was something also, not only that, but you can tell he's got some fire in there. Maybe not, you may not see him if he was on the sidelines go as crazy as like a Sala or D'Amico Ryans even, but you can tell that he's a fiery coach. And so the fact that he is this hands on in between plays and in between reps does lend an interesting dynamic of where would he be better suited as somebody that wants to coach players in the moment and finds that important. You can tell why then would you choose to be in the booth? Now, obviously, being in the booth, you're going to see the field better. So maybe just having that all 22 view is he covets that over the actual coaching in the moment and figures that after the game he can have those conversations or after, during practices or film review or whatever. But I do find that interesting because I think that he could be successful either way. And I know that he said he's going to call the plays from the booth, but man, I really think he would be an asset on the sideline as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I think that I hope that they, take a second look at. I'm not saying they should change their mind, but at least think about, especially as Wilkes gets integrated with this team. Maybe the relationship that he builds with these players is so intact that he doesn't necessarily have to be right there for them to be able to communicate as well as they can. But he's a guy who teaches by example. He takes players through everything. He's hands-on, something I noticed.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of hands-on, Chris Kocurek. Oh
Oh yeah.
my gosh. This guy, we know he's a madman, but let me paint the scene for you. First of all, they get into 11 on 11s. It's almost like a schoolyard fight, honestly, is the way that I see it. Because here's what happens. You have 11 on 11s, and the offense is lined up directly behind the quarterback, like, 15 yards behind, but they're all lined up on the field watching the play happen, arms crossed. Shanahan's right there, pacing back and forth, calling his plays. They're huddling up, and then everybody on offense is right there on the field. And then on the sideline, the left sideline, you've got all the defensive players. So it's like an L shape around the offense and defense. And so it reminds me of like everybody circles around and watches the schoolyard fight. That's kind of like the feeling you get out there. It's a pretty cool atmosphere. But here comes Chris Kosirik sweating through both sides of his shirt. He's wearing a hat that has been, got sweat stains on it, brown sweat stains on it, and he's spitting his sunflower seeds. And after each play, he runs out on the field, gets in the defensive line's face, yelling at him, pumping him up, coaching him. I love that dude. Seriously, the fact that the 49ers were able to keep him, and I really thought, Rohan, that there was a good chance he was going to go to the Texans as a defensive coordinator. Not because he wants to be a defensive coordinator, because he's made it clear that he prefers not to ever do that position. He loves the defensive line so much, but because D'Amico Ryans, I thought, could put him in an interesting situation where he could get paid like a defensive coordinator and
Right.
have the role, but really just be a really hands-on defensive line coach like he's always been. And D'Amico Ryans would be the true defensive coordinator. So I am happy that Chris Kosirik was able to stick around because Chris Kosirik is an absolute gem. He's a hell of
Oh
a
yeah.
coach, and you see it play out, practice in and practice out, why he is so revered as likely the best defensive line coach in the NFL. You see why all the time. I had to point that out. I thought it was fantastic.
And I mean, I agree. And this is something that really caught my eye because when I came to camp last year without any
Mhm.
experience, I didn't really know how these individual sessions take place. It's not only in individual drills, it's in team drills, it's everywhere. He is the definition of hands-on. He will come at you in the middle, like right after a play is over, while the offense is getting ready to set up. One play today, he went right to Taco Charlton and taught him something and then ran off the field. He's just living in his own world. He does his own thing, and you understand why players respect him. You understand why he's such a good coach. His approach, I don't necessarily know if it's unique, but it's extremely effective, and that's the importance of Chris Kosirik, and that's something that we see day in and day out, and it's really, he's super passionate about the defensive line. That's something that's really out there, and he's really true to his craft.